welcome to Building SaaS with Python and Django. My name is Matt Lehman, and on this stream we build Django apps. We're going to continue on the PDF project that I've been working on to make reporting available to homeschool families that need their year-end report. That's the plan. We're going to take some refinements that I got as feedback from my customers and then extend the report bundle with some of the other PDFs that we need to add to make it a complete package. So that's the plan for this evening. I don't know that we'll get all the way through this project, but we'll chip away at the pieces that are there, and we'll see what we run into in the process. Before we start, I want to say thank you to the patrons that support me at Patreon. You can become one of those patrons if you would like at patreon.com/mblehman. I want to shout out to Rupert, Andrew, Dragos, Ryan, Patrick, Eric, Fred, Aaron, Philip, Miguel, Shivan, and Monty. Thank you all for your support. Appreciate that. And it helps keep me motivated to do this stuff here. So you, if you're joining live, can ask me anything about Python, Django, or web development. Ooh, I didn't use the Oxford comma there. That's very atypical of me. Anyway, but we're going to work on my homeschool application. If this is your first time joining in, I build a homeschool app, and it is a full Django project that you can go view on the web. This is not a private repository. As you can see, it's listed as public here on GitHub. So you can check that out at mblehman/homeschool if you're browsing around on GitHub. And we've got this project that I've been working on that is, again, it's about building PDFs for a family for the end of the school year. It's all of the activity of the student bundled together in a single format that in a single archive that they can then use to share with government or for their own record keeping purposes. So one of the things that we're going to start with is some refinements on the names of the files that are created in this process. I kind of put in dummy names knowing that they weren't going to stand up to the scrutiny of my spouse, who's one of my customers. And she gave me the feedback that I was looking for, and so now we have the names that we can use. After that relatively simple change, we can then move on to the next report that's in the process. But let's do this simple refinement first. So let's jump over to code and get to where this report stuff is, which is in this views area. And I've got a create bundle view. So here is, well, I guess, are both of the names here? We've got this resource report name there, and then we've got the overall, but yeah, both of them are here. So we probably need to modify what? Do we need to write a test for this stuff? Maybe. Some of these are going to be easier to check than others. I have a feeling, for instance, that it'll be easy to verify the bundle name. It'll be a lot less easy to verify the actual report that's here, because it's being added to an archive file, and that would be, I could write a test that will unpackage the zip archive and inspect the file names, but I think I've talked about on previous streams is that I'm not really interested in doing a super in-depth level of testing and stuff with this project, at least in this regard. Like I think it's not as important. So as long as every time I'm checking this, I'm reviewing the bundle anyway, then I don't think it's going to matter too much. Okay, so let's at least bring up, though, the test views for this reports, and then get the bundle name here. And here is our bundle create view. You can see we already have a test for the name, and this is where we're going to change it. So there is some test in place here for that. That's a good thing. We'll run that test, and it doesn't take very long to run. Now, it does happen to be probably the longest test in the suite now, because it is actually doing PDF processing and other stuff, and I'm not mocking that stuff out. So I'm okay with that. It's slower than other tests, but it's still not unbearably slow, and this project's test suite is reasonably fast, so I'm not too concerned. So let's change it to the name that for the bundle part. It was important, according to my spouse, to include the name of School Desk itself. School Desk is the name of the product, or the service, and you can check it out if you want. It's at the School Desk app. So this is where the service lives for people that are actually using it. And she said, look, when I download this thing, I want to be able to see where I got this from, or I want to be able to search for it, and knowing that that's what I'm using, she wanted School Desk in there. So that's an easy enough thing to do. And it's just a static string that we can add here. I don't envision me changing the name of the service at this point. It's sort of locked in. So if I had some weird vision of white labeling this, which is the idea of making a generic service and then somebody could attach their own branding on top of, then this might be more complicated. But I have no such desire to do that at all. So we're going to bypass that whole process. The other part that we can do here is we can put the year in there. That was something else that was important to add. And so we're going to do it in the simplest way that we can, which is to turn this into an F string. And then what was the naming? There's no dash or anything here. So, and then we will add the school year, like so. So the way this is going to operate is the school year is going to, because it's in F string, and this is part of a string, and this will do the formatting, it's going to call the stir method on the school year model that it gets. And I happen to know off the top of my head that that school year model will return the year. And actually will return a range of years if you are spanning a single calendar year for your homeschool stuff. So if we run this test again, I expect this to fail this time because, well, actually, maybe it won't. Okay, it still does. Look at that. Content disposition. There's all sorts of stuff in there. What is going on? Curious as to what is that stuff. Let's check it out. We've got the response. We want to look for the content disposition. Basically tells the browser, hey, this is how I want you to interpret this particular type of file, or what you want to do about it. It's not quite the same as content type. You can see the content type is above. I guess it's more about like metadata. So you want this to be a zip file, and if you don't provide a content disposition, I think the browser will just pick its own thing. And you can see how we had to do that with a certain format over here, attachment file name equal blah blah blah. So let's print this out and see what it says. And I can go into the debugger, but this is just easier probably. Bunch of wheezy print warnings, which is making this way noisier than I expect. All right, so there's some interesting encoding stuff going on here. So if I change this, I wonder if that will work. I wonder what's going to happen there. So let's just change it to what I think it's supposed to be, because this was previously working. And I'm finding the results kind of curious. Let's change it to what I think it should be. It should be school desk bundle with the school year. And we've got the school year accessible in the test, so we can do the exact same thing, honestly. And call it .zip at the end. But it needs to have an F string in it so that it does the right thing. And is this going to pass? And then if it does, maybe there's like some magic. Nope, it doesn't. So there's something different here in the way that content disposition is getting translated. So there's like I think there's an encoding step that's happening, so that what we are looking at in the content disposition is not this simple naming here that you see. So we're telling Django that we want to set this content disposition with this value, and it's not quite as, and I was hoping that this string would just exist in the actual results, but if there is an encoding on here, then that might be like changing dash characters to a certain percent something, or spaces to something else. There's other stuff going on here. So here's what I'm looking at. This is a funky encoding. I don't think I've ever seen this before. So, and this is a lack of knowledge about my part of the HTTP spec. There's some curious stuff here. There's UTF-8 Q. So this is UTF-8 is Unicode UTF. It's an encoding. I understand that part. And then, on the application code, I added attachment, and then it was a semicolon in my code. And here we're seeing equals 3B. Maybe that's a unique encoding for the content disposition? This is really curious. What is that? So let's look it up. Let's find out what we can, because learning is good. Let's say content disposition encoding. And see what MDN has to say about this. Let's search for encoding. The parameter file name differs only in that it uses the encoding defined in RFC 5987. Well, what is RFC 5987? Oh, geez. Okay. Going down the rabbit hole, y'all. All right. Character set, encoding. What are you about? Abstract. By default, message header fields in HTTP messages cannot carry characters outside the ISO 8859 character set. Okay, so I don't know exactly what that character set specifies, but I imagine it's stuff outside of ASCII. What is? Let's just, for curiosity's sake, again, let's not just make guesses. Let's actually know things. What is ISO 8859-1? ISO 8859-1. ISO is a standards body. If you don't even know what ISO is, I think it's the International Standards Organization. So they have a lot of standards that exist on the web, or exist just in general. And here we go. Here's our answer. ISO 8859-1 is the Latin alphabet number 1. So it's ASCII. Okay. It looks like it's this, maybe the set over here is probably the majority of it. Well, that's an image, so I can't highlight all that. But you see over here, like it's the standard letters that you would get in English, plus some additional accented letters for common things used in other languages like Spanish, German, etc. Umlauts and enys and all that stuff, all that fun stuff. Languages are cool, but I don't have time to dig into too much to that part. So I think what this says is like anything that's outside of that set, at least on the surface, needs to be encoded. Needs to means like there's no way to represent that. So if you had, for instance, an emoji in a file name, what this RFC is saying is that HTTP in the header cannot represent that emoji as that particular character point. It needs to encode it. In other words, translate it to some coded version so that it can actually send it over the network. And on the other side, it's expected that that stuff is decoded back into the Unicode character, in this case, an emoji. So I think that's what's happening with our content disposition field, is the the content there is being translated. Now, what I don't know, or I don't understand, is that, look, here is the semicolon, and like, I'm sure this first one's the space character. It's not even listed, so I don't understand why. Here's 889. So space is character 0. Like, I would think that that stuff would be there. So I don't understand why it's been translated into like this other scheme here, where it's this like equals 3b, and the spaces are converted to underscores like that. All of that is sort of magical to me. So I think what I'm going to do instead is just kind of punt on the whole problem. What I really care about in the test, what do I care about? I care that it has school name, school desk in the bundle name, and that it has, well, maybe I can translate this. Let's see. Let's check on one thing, because I know that I'm going to have some test failures if I don't. So, schools. Here's a school year. And, oh, come on. Where'd it go? There's a problem here with my test code. So I might have to pin the school year for this test. The problem is this. The way that I build school years automatically is that it takes the current date and then it adds some number of weeks to it. And for most of the year, and it creates a relatively small school year for test data. So I think it's like 90 days or something like that. So essentially the school year is the size of a quarter. That will work most of the year for this particular test if I check on this name as is, because it would be, as you saw in the test data earlier, 2022, and it would just say that one number. But when I reach the end of this year, it's going to be, the start is going to be in 2022 and the end is going to be in 2023. And so it will change from a school year of representation of 2022 to a representation of 2022-2023. And as I think what will happen is that dash might be encoded into some other value here. So I could, let me take a guess at what I think could work, and we'll change this to underscore underscore and underscore. So let's turn all of those things into what I think that they transform into. Might be wrong on that, but we'll see if that was enough to fix the test. And then we might need to do, nope, not quite enough. So what else is going on? Oh man, it's already got something crazy in there. You can see it. So it's already going into 2023. Yeah, you can see, here's what I thought it might be. We're close here, but then it does this weird middle stuff with the equals E2 equals 80 equals. Oh man, plus to equals 93. I don't understand what all those bits are. But this is the interesting part. This is fascinating. I didn't think about this aspect of this naming. So maybe, how much do I care? Because I kind of just, if I could assert that this much is true, that it has school desk bundle and then the start year, maybe that's good enough. Let's try that. Because I know it'll be the accurate representation by having school desk there, or the school year there. So we can transform this. We'll get rid of the zip part. We're not going to capture all that. And the school year has, I believe, a start date, which is a date field. So we can say school year start date. And this is inside a format string. So we should be able to say colon %y, I think. What this should do is like run the date object through a formatter inside of the format string that uses the year attribute of the date, which should be 2022, and it's the start. So that much, I think, should match. Cool. All right. So that's sufficient for me to be convinced that we've got the name right. That was a fun little tangent. I learned something new about headers. Hopefully you did too. Okay, let's move on to the next bit. The other thing that my spouse was looking for is she wanted, like, inside of the zip file itself, for the individual files to also be tagged with the year. And the thought process was essentially, let's make it individually shareable. Each part should be shareable, because the government might say, you know what, we don't actually need all of this stuff. We just need the activities that you did for each of the courses that you taught for your students. And so if we do that, then she could share just the pieces of this. So I think all we need to do for this particular change is prefix this with this school year dash stuff. And we have all of that information. So we'll do school year and dash. And I'm not actually going to unit test this part, but I am going to run the test to make sure that it didn't blow up. I mean, I'm visually inspecting it, and it looks absolutely right, but better to check it. Okay. So we've got these two minor modifications. We can commit this stuff. Apparently I need to upgrade pre-commit, so we'll take a second to let that do that. And we'll say bundle, add bundle naming refinements. And that fixes, what is that? What was the number for that? Fixes 590. Cool. I think we are ready to move on to the next part. So what is the next part? First let's push this up. That should close this issue right away because I added the fixes in there. There it is, real time. Cool, way to go, GitHub. And now we're ready to move to this part, I think. Let's also go check the original issue. I split this up for fun in previous stream, but it does make it a little harder to see how close I am to being done. So the resource report, the resource report is done. And I did enable this for my spouse to review, so that's actually done. So we're down to these two steps of basically filling in the rest of the reports, and then I offline will iterate with my spouse to see what she thinks. The encouraging part was she was happy enough with the reports. Like I told, if you were on last time, we were looking at the PDF reports. They are not glamorous, even slightly. They're very boring looking. And that's okay. Like this is for record keeping purposes. They need to be very functional. They need to be accurate, but they do not need to be beautiful. And by eliminating that constraint of making them beautiful, it kind of makes it easier to crank this out. on a more reasonable timeline, rather than spending a lot of time refining PDFs, because PDFs are actually pretty hard to work with if you've never worked with them before. So I think the next thing to do is fire up the server, check out what is next. Oh no. I have the name of the test account wrong? Nope. Okay. Just typed in the password wrong. So we did the resource report. And this looks terrible, but this is just our test data. But we created this. And actually, since we're here, I think we can probably show off what it looks like with the tool that we were using. We've got this PDF tool. We can pop in an ID here and click the generate button. And here it is. So the goal is to make these look essentially like the HTML version, even if they are not amazing to look at, but they get the meaning across. So we need to do this for the next report. What is the next report? I guess I also need to stay on this page. So we've got options here. Trying to think of which of these might be the most useful. Doesn't really matter, we got to do them both. So we can either do the progress report, or we can do the attendance report. What do I have test data for? Okay. This will work. We can pick either one. Let's go with the progress report first, just because it's in order in the list. First thing I want to do, I think, is to modify the PDF dashboard that I have here and make that that view that will allow us to iterate quickly, just like we did with the resource report. So at the start of this project, I wanted a tool just like this that could take an ID and very quickly check, is the PDF output appropriate? Is it coming out okay? And I couldn't do that until I had this page. We already went through the work of creating this particular dashboard page, so that's all set. Now we just need to add more to it. So this is going to be mostly a copy and paste activity to get what we are looking for. So let's do that. I don't even remember which one we have to do next or how to go about this. We probably want to start with the template. So let's go to the template area and go to the reports, and the PDF's dashboard is no doubt the file that we care about. And let's take this whole chunk of HTML, pop it in here, and let's stick alphabetically. Let's change this top one actually. This is now the progress report. We don't have a new URL yet, but let's look at this progress report, how it's generated. So it's using the same kind of scheme as the resource report, which means it's going to need this particular ID, which is an enrollment ID, which is the connection between a student and the grade that they're in. So we know that we're going to use the same exact kind of data that was in the resource report. Eventually, we'll need to change this to be read as progress instead. So let's go to the URLs area and add progress. We'll call this the progress report. and we'll change this to progress. Now, my editor is complaining because it knows that that view is not available yet, so I'll just kill the browser for a minute. We're going to have to restart this stuff anyway. So that part's done. When we restart the browser, that progress URL will resolve, so we can do this. We can go ahead and change that to progress. And I think the next thing that I want to do is come into the views and go to resource report. This view, I want to copy it just entirely because it's going to be the same pattern. And I want to follow the same pattern all the way. So it's I've got like the admin view right next to the real view that uses that. And it's not important, but I want to do that for consistency reasons because look, they're both of these are actually generating a report, but one is using a template. So the actual real view on the website, the HTML view, is using a template view, and it's using this resource report context. That's how I keep the data consistent between both the PDF and the actual HTML, is by having this data class that uses a defined context. So I want to follow that same pattern with the progress report in a minute. So we're going to follow the structure here and have context exist in both places. We've got the resource report there, and we'll come up to here. Wow, this one's going to be a lot more complicated. I'm seeing it already with the progress report. There's more stuff that we're going to have to refactor. That view is doing way more than it should. We've got this. Now it's complaining. I've got the gray gutter there because there's a double naming. So for the moment, I'm going to just name this progress report. So that right now is identical to the resource report view. And let's go to we want to go to this test case. And just like there, again, there's symmetry here. There's the resource report view, and there's the resource report office view. But I want to come up above the progress one and do the same thing. So now this is the test office progress report. And we should be able to switch this to progress. Run that test. This one should pass. And frankly, so should the other one. Because again, we haven't changed the body of this view yet. So it's exactly the same as the resource version. We're just giving a different path to the same code, essentially. So those two tests pass. And that's all the level of control I want here. I just want to be able to hook this up and make it as easy and as dumb as possible. I'm not doing any checking because this is all just tooling for me. And it will blow up with a 404 if I give it the wrong ID. But that's all on me. So now is where we get into the actual comparison with the progress report's context data. And this is where it gets harder. So again, let's look back at the resource report. When I built the resource report, I used a data class. And this is a discussion I had with somebody in the stream, I can't remember who, about doing this technique as a way to keep this consistent between what goes into the PDF and what goes into the HTML. And to do that, I devised this data class that is right here, and then I built it up. and we injected the data attributes that are there. And these are the pieces that go into the context. So I want to do something similar with progress report, but the progress report, as you saw, was significantly more complicated than the resource report. Resource report's like this one little line, nothing to it. This is a good opportunity to take all of these chunks of logic that are here and move them into this other place, another place. So I think what I want to do probably is to move these to a data class. Now we'll have to review each little mix-in method and such, but the end result should be that the context that I build up in the view is very simple in the HTML view, which is probably what it should have been in the first place, to be honest. Like, it's really not great to be putting a ton of stuff and building it this way. Here are little weird attributes that we're gonna have to work through too, of like what about when you have a course ID. All right, so there's some oddities in here that we'll have to deal with, but nothing that can't be resolved, I think. Let's start by comparing the enrollment. I know that I need that for both. Does the enrollment at least match up? So the enrollment from here is like the entry point that's checking. This is the HTTP level stuff, checking if we need to 404. It's essentially the authorization control, which doesn't matter for the staff member stuff because that's me doing that. But I will want to maintain this this authorization check in the view so that it can return a 404 if somebody who's not supposed to have access does try and access it. So we can leave essentially we can leave this piece alone. Everything above here. But it's this from this point onward about all of this stuff is used to build up a context. And that's what I want to replace. Okay, so let's think about the steps that go in here. Or let's just kind of make it up. What would it be? We want to build our context in this same style. I'm going to seal these two lines. I'll come up to the top. I'm going to drop them right here. Then I'm going to comment out all the real lines for the moment. So in this scenario as well, we want to build the progress report context from the enrollment object. That seems to be all of the stuff that's driving what goes down here. Everything else is derivative of that enrollment. Let's call this progress report context. And then we can say resource report with progress report. And then in the end, we're returning just the context. So each of the keys that we see in the context of the commented out code is the stuff that needs to go into our data class. So we can, why don't we do that? Let's just bring up the context file over here, and we'll start our new data class. So we know we need what? We need the grade level. And so we use the annotation style and we say grade level. All right. And I guess we might as well start the same from enrollment class method that we expect to be using here. And we'll build this up piece by piece. So we'll follow the same style. We'll say return. We'll say class equal, not equal, class. And we'll pass in the grade level as the first argument, because that's what the class, the data class will build up for us. Okay. So that will knock out this particular piece. Mujtaba, yeah, I agree. Django is pretty awesome. And the next piece we want in here. John, absolutely. So I'm continuing the PDF project that I've been working on. We're just moving to one of the different reports. So this is it's going to be repeating the pattern that I did with the resource report, using the same exact concepts, and hopefully simplifying my Django views in the process to make something a lot cleaner. That's what I'm hoping to get out of this data class here. So what we need now is the school year as well. And we can build that too from enrollment grade level school year. Okay. So that's that a little bit. No problem. Absolutely. And we need the student. So I'll try and keep these in the same order. Why not? That seems to make sense. So then if that's the case, if now the student is the first argument, then we need enrollment.student here. All right. What else do we need? So here's where this gets a little funky, because we have to build up. We have to make a decision about what query set to build based upon a separate ID. And you can see here that I'm making that query set decision based on this course ID. Honestly, I don't remember why. I think it's because, oh, I remember what it is now. All right. Let's see if we can, well, I've hacked up the view. Unfortunately, I can't really show you right now because it's all commented out and I'm ripping apart the view as we speak. However, I can say that one of the things that I added in the HTML version of this was an ability to click a header, and it would do a query string parameter. And that query string parameter, that's why you see it as request.get here, would be a course ID. And in the presence of that course ID, it would filter just to a course, because I had a user who said, hey, I like the progress report, but I only want to look at my child's math class or something like that right now. So that's what this is for. Otherwise, it's querying on all of them. So as we are building this from enrollment method, we need to put in a course ID, and that course ID, I'm going to go ahead and put the type information on here. Could be course or none. So I'm going to use the new annotation syntax, and it's going to like all kinds of blow up on me if I don't do this. From future import annotations. So using that pipe character is a new style. In the previous versions of Python, you could do from typing import optional and then have optional with your class in brackets after the optional. But I find that this style is a better way to say like it's this or it's a none, which is effectively what optional meant. So we need to go to the courses models area and import course as well. And now that we have this, we can take all of, well, hold on. How? Whew, what is it doing here? Am I doing something in place? I think I am. Oh, okay. Wow. That's interesting. All right. Well, this will work. So I forgot that so essentially what I'm doing is I'm iterating through some stuff, and I'm attaching for each grade that comes in, I'm attaching some coursework to it. All right. I see what I did here. I think this particular piece will come right over into the data class. Again, it's going to need to be a class method. This did not need to be an instance method. So that's all going to work. I think what I want to do is take all of this code completely and plop it right there and see how much this fails when I uncomment it. So we need the queue object, which is from Django DB models import queue. Queue is the query object, which is if you needed to do like composition of your query sets, that's what queue is for. Pretty useful tool in that way. And we need grade. Where are you, grade? You're in the students area. So we need to put grade right here. And then self doesn't make any sense. So we need to switch this to be class. And then it's going to complain like, what are you talking about? There is no class method there. So we can go back to that mix in, take this thing, and drop that there. That brings in coursework. Okay. More stuff. Students. Coursework. And I apologize, I'm not really going over the data modeling here. I think it doesn't, hopefully it doesn't really matter for your purposes. Just accept that this is some of the data that's required by the report. So we'll return back to that mixin section. What else is missing? Oh, this needs to be a class method now. And then we can change this to class. You can see like that didn't matter. Nothing inside of here failed because the self attribute wasn't actually used at all. And thankfully I put a pretty decent comment about why I had to do what I'm doing there. So that's useful. So all of this stuff goes away, I think. And we need a list of courses. What is this? Okay, it's not actually a list of courses though. It is a list of dictionaries that have a course in it. So I think what we can do is say courses list dict. I think that'll work. And it's noticing, hey, you didn't pass in everything. So here's where we need to add in, we can create a local variable here called courses. And we'll take in this whole thing. hopefully this is all, I'm doing some pretty serious refactoring here and hoping not to get burned. Oh, there's another one. Good grief. Yeah, thankfully all these are like really, they're just helper methods that I attach to the view. Which makes sense. Like, if you think about it, you don't want your views to have stateful stuff really attached to them. I guess with maybe the exception of a class-based view in Django, oftentimes has the request, not often, all the time has the request object attached to it. And I suppose the user object also gets attached to it, I think. But generally, it's not a good idea to like attach state of your own to the request, even though that on each call, each HTTP request that comes in will get its own instance of the view class. It's just usually not the best idea. So what we can do is we can say build, where did grades go? There's grades. So we say class, and then build courses info, and we pass in grades. And then we pass that to here. And it's noticing, hey, wait a minute, what are you talking about? Missing a positional argument. That's because I need to define this as a class method. And then again, change this to a class. And then we'll notice this last one here also needs to be a class method. So we change this to class and this to class. And then it looks like we need 2 more bits from the decimal library. So we need decimal and round half up. That's part of the math here. Whoop. Okay. I think we've done all the necessary conversion bits here. Delete Q. We can delete grade. What else? Progress report. Still have not imported that yet. Delete all that stuff. All of this stuff has moved over, as well as all this stuff. So check this out. I'm liking how what this is doing to the view. Like, really great views should be very tight in what they're able to convey. And you can see it now. I hope you agree with me. I can see it very clearly. This is getting a core piece of data, and it's doing an authorization check there. If you can't get it, 404, because you don't have permission. And that's because it's checking, do you, the user, have the same school as that matches this ID? And then we're building this context from that particular enrollment object. Oh, I'm noticing something that would be really sad if I lost it. We need to add the, what was it called? There's request, get, and I know I have tests for this, so we would have caught it, but like just call it course. I'm gonna have to check the diff. Yeah, just course. So now we've got those bits coming in. I could type check the whole thing. I don't really feel like it. This is all I really want to, well, okay. If you don't type check the entire method, then the type checker is just going to ignore it. So this will be useful for me as a reader, but it's not actually going to help me from a tooling level. So I probably should type check the whole thing, which means that I need to come up here and I need to do this. I need to say enrollment and then put the enrollment here. And then I also need to return the return type, which is tricky because the class isn't defined yet. I can't remember if my version of Python supports me just being able to say this. I'll try. Maybe with that future annotations, it's fine. Might not be. Okay. I think it's respecting that. In earlier versions of Python, you couldn't do this because when methods are defined, like in order to define the class, it has to go through and parse all the methods. And so this particular, before that parsing is all done, this progress report context is not a token that is available to the interpreter yet. So as it was going through and processing this thing, if it ever encountered this as a bare token, it would say, I don't know what that is, which makes sense because it hadn't finished processing the class yet. What the future annotations bit does is essentially, under the covers, turns all of these things into strings, more or less. And so it delays the evaluation of, is that an actual token, until later in the process. I believe that's how it works. Okay, so we've got all of the stuff moved out of the view. It's now in this data class context thing, which still not 100% convinced is the right place for this logic, but it's better than being directly in the view. And what's done with decimal? Round half up is done. And so is decimal. Okay. And now we can go over here and put in that. All right, I think we're finally free of all of the warnings and stuff. Let's check it and see how I did. Okay, so this is what the progress report should look like. It has 2 courses, 2 tasks, scores there. Well, it has a score and no completed date. I'm not sure how that worked, but I think you can. I think I made it so you can clear dates. Apparently, it didn't clear the score along with it, so maybe that's a bug. But we don't care about the resource report right now. We are not doing the attendance report. Let's open up a new tab on the progress report and see if it matches up. Oh, sweet. They are identical. I think we nailed it. Right. The other test that we can do to make sure that my refactoring went as we expected is to run the tests with coverage. I have 100% test coverage on this project, so if we missed any spots, then we're going to discover it here. But I think we did it right. This runs a little bit slower while streaming because my computer is busy transcoding video. But good. It did everything it needed to. Cool. Now, I think we're ready to move on to this next part. Let's make one modification here. Let's say, I think it goes after. None? So this is one of the areas where I like the new pipe syntax, but it looks weird when you have a default value here. Because really the way that, like this, in any other circumstance, you would read this as like course ID equal none. Python programmers the world over understand what that means. Anybody who's spent more than, say 6 months working on functions and has learned about keyword arguments will know what that means. But when you put the type annotation in front of that, now you get this kind of odd construction of like, what is this actually meaning? And you have to, it takes me my brain a second to say, oh, that's just the type annotation. It's not saying none assigning to none, so that's the part that looks a little, I wouldn't blame a new Python programmer for being like, what the heck is that? Because it does look a little funny. But that's the way it's done. Okay. So we can now do what? Just by doing this, I can come into this area and change what? Change this to progress report context. Still going to use from enrollment. When I'm rendering this for myself locally, I never want the filtering. So I'm just going to leave that course ID option off because now I've added that default of none. So that's totally cool. We can change this to progress report. I don't care about a fancy name when I'm doing the test view stuff. And okay, so here's the benefit of what I did with these data classes, and this was the genius of whichever viewer was watching this and suggesting this. By using a data class, I was able to type annotate the actual PDF methods. So I'm expecting the real context data to come in. And so the MyPy is on here, and you can notice at the bottom of my editor where it says make resource report has incompatible type progress report context, but because it expected a resource report context. So that is fantastic. It tells me that I'm not passing in the right kind of data to generate the PDF report. And it's right, because this is not the thing I need to be calling. So I think what we need to do is we need to go to the PDFs area, and we need to start the new PDF. So this is going to be we're going to need the progress report context for sure. And it's going to have the same signature as the resource report, but it's going to be the progress report. In fact, we can just do substitute resource for progress. And change this to progress report context. So that's all good. Now on this side, we change this to make progress report. And we're getting pretty close. Okay, time for refactoring number 2. The refactoring that we need here is what? All of these reports that I'm building, they're all going to use the same style, the same CSS. They're all going to use the same trick to add Arial, because this was solved a font issue with PDF stuff. They're all going to use the same technique of rendering to a string and calling asDict on some data class. And then they are all going to go through this HTML, bytes.io, and this stuff. So what that tells me is that this system is desperately calling out for some kind of general function, excuse me, that will be able to call into and take some parameters. And what is the piece that actually changes? The context changes, and this is where I'm not sure how this is going to work on the general method. We'll just have to deal with it. But the other piece that we actually need is the template. That's really the only two things that matter. The template that you're going to use and the data to go in the template. Everything else is boilerplate. So I think what I want to do is take this, drop another one below it, and we'll make this one, we'll make this private as an underscore. And instead of just calling it make resource report, let's call it make report. And what do we actually need to change here? So we still need the context. This is the part that I'm not sure how to type annotate. I see some options here that I don't really like, but we can try it. So, yep. Yeah. Okay, I think I have the solution that I want instead. What I was thinking of is I could make this a union of any type of report in here. It could be a union of it could be this kind of context or this kind of context or this kind of context, but it doesn't matter. Like really what is ultimately going to happen here is it needs a dictionary, and it's going to be on my shoulders to match up the right context with the right template. And that'll be done through the combination of type signature on the like wrapper function and the specifying the template in that wrapper function. This will make more sense in a minute. So I think what I'm going to do instead is change this from context to of a data class to just a generic dictionary of any keys, as I don't really care. And then we've got, I'm sure we've got some render calls somewhere. So render takes the structure of template name first and then the context. So why don't we follow suit with that? So we'll say template name, not name with a string. So we've got that. And we can replace the, what do we want to replace? So we'll change that to template name. Why do I keep typing name? That's weird. And drop the asdict call right here. Okay. So there's our we'll call it a template function. That's, or sometimes it's called, either called a template function or it's not a factory function. I guess the template pattern is the name that I've seen used, where you have a generic algorithm, which is what this make report does, and then you want to fill it in with some little bits. It's not a pure, like an actual, sometimes it's like a, you could have a template class, and a template class would be, subclass from this superclass that acts as the template, and then use various hook point methods to actually insert the variance of what needs to happen differently. But this is a very simple case where the only thing that varies is going to be the template name. So now what we're left with in this bit at the top is we can replace this with return, and we'll call make report, and we'll pass in the template name. So that's reports resource report HTML. Now the key that I'm going to have to remember for this method, although the type signature would remind me, is that I'm going to have to call asdict before calling this function. So the translation that's happening from the data class to just a straight up dictionary is happening in these higher level functions rather than in the template function. And then I delete all that stuff, and this is what I'm left with. So where that gets us with the progress report is now we're down to something quite similar that looks like this. Now that template doesn't exist yet, but that's the whole PDF generator. All right, let's check out if I did this right. Start this back up. If I did this correctly, we should be able to come back to the dashboard, and I should be able to hit this generate button, and it should still generate the PDF because I've wired everything correctly, and the template name is still matches and it still is getting the data properly. So all that should be true. Okay. And it is. There's still the resource. It still looks like junk because it's the junk garbage in data, but it's correct. I thought I put that in a new tab. Why didn't it? Yeah, what the heck? Previous times I've done this stream, I've been able to like click that button on a new tab and rather than hit back, but whatever. Okay, so that's still working. We refresh. We now have we now have our progress report. So we can come over here and actually we can click this same button. But before I do that, I had not seen this with it. So let's add more space to the bottom. Let's say MB8. That's really tight. Okay, that looks good. Generating this is going to trigger a template error. What? Progress report? Oh no. What just happened there? Do I already have the template for this? That would be phenomenal. What just happened? I am pretty confused about what just happened. Clearly. Aha. Ooh. I think I made a mistake. Yep, I made a mistake. PDF. I was wondering why this worked so well. That was shockingly better than I thought it was going to be, because I thought we'd pick something that didn't have a template, but I forgot that I've named the HTML view very similarly to the PDF view. So I really broke something by accident, and that this thing should have been named PDF. Challenge is it was so close, so similar, that I thought it was right. Open a new tab, please. Oops. Okay. There it is. There and there are reasons why I had them, even though they look remarkably similar. There are reasons that they are different. For instance, when I have the HTML version of this, which I can't for some reason show you both, when I use the other template, this chunk was larger on the top and it wrapped around. So I made the PDF version have a slightly smaller header. So we do want to be able to make tweaks that improve the look of what's in there. So time to basically take the progress report and copy it and tweak it till it looks right. There's a bunch of stuff in here. Code as, you're welcome. I'm not sure what you're thanking me for, but hopefully I was able to teach you something along the way if you're taking off. Thanks for joining in. All right. So let's take this template and create the new one. Progress report PDF. Put all that in here and give it the right name over here. That'll be important. And what was different with this? All right, looks like I stripped out all the other fluff. Like it's really, the PDF version has none of the blocks and other stuff that is there. It doesn't need any of that stuff, which makes sense. We really don't need that stuff. Static. Is there static in here anywhere? I bet there is. There's probably an else block if it was empty. So we want to get rid of this else block because we are going to make the assumption that the person who's asking for this did have some courses for the school year. Remember, this is an end of the year bundle of stuff. So this check, it'd be pretty weird to, I mean, I guess you could generate your PDFs and then not have any stuff in there, but that's kind of on you at that point if you've done something that strange. So let's get rid of the else block that is for the empty state of saying this is where your reports are going to go. They don't need that. We can also get rid of the if that goes with that. We can get rid of the block for main here. And does that line up? It does, okay. We can get rid of the app base, load static, the page header, none of that stuff matters. So what we're left with is a header, which I think we'll probably have to resize. And then we can outdent that a couple. And then we'll fiddle with this until it looks right. And maybe put side by side the resource report to see like what did I have to change the size to over here. Like I can see right off the bat, I want, because most of my resource reports are the same in the same way, so I should be consistent. So let's do this by changing this to XL, which will probably give us the same kind of sizing so this stuff will fit on a page with any luck. So let's check it out. Going to generate the progress report and okay. What's weird about this? Right off the bat, what I'm noticing that's a little different is what do I think is different? This isn't a link. We don't need this to be a link. Doesn't make any sense to link out from the PDF, take you to the site. No. So we're going to get rid of the link stuff and just have the course, which we'll get rid of the weird underline that's not necessary. It's not weird, it's just not necessary. But now we've got a header. All right. I don't think I could just refresh this. I don't think that'll work, will it? No. That would have been too darn cool. I lost the ID. Here it is. Come back over here. Progress report. Generate. Okay. We're close. Nearly done. I think the other big change I want to make here is reduce the width. Like this, we've got completed date. This is wrapping. That's like really needless. Look how much space. How many people are going to name their courses something so long that it'll take up all of that space? Not necessary. So let's come down here and change this to be, oh, I don't know. It's at 6th. So we can change it to be we'll just make it 3 and then make this one 2 so it has more space. We'll see how it looks. This is the grid system coming from Tailwind, which is determining, if, in case you couldn't guess, like the width of those flex boxes have to add up to 1 as a whole. So they're fractional amounts right now. So we have to consider that we are working with 6 units. Tailwind gives us other units that we can use. 6 is just one of the systems, so you can do, I believe, 12ths, 16ths. I'll go read the Tailwind docs and they'll tell you the other sizes that are available. Pretty sure there's fifths and quarters and stuff like that. But for the purpose of this simple table, 6 was good enough. And then we can change that to 3 and 3. And I could, do math class and reduce these, but I actually want to remind myself all the way through that I'm using the grid 6 system. So even though width of 1/2 is equal to width of 3/6, I'm ignoring that desire in me to do my basic, it's not algebra? No, it's not even algebra. Stuff you learn in like 4th grade. My kid is literally learning this right now. All right, let's see how this goes. Okay, so now we've got that. We'll fill out the whole thing. That feels right. Something weird with the numbers, but that may just be their... Oh, come on. So these are lining up nicely, and now they're not lining up here. Boo. Okay. What happened? This is the average, and it's doing a text write. That's fine. That's what's pushing it over to this side. I think maybe if I'm going to try something here. Because it's got the score here. What happens if I just use that same style? And instead of using grade score, change it to be course info, course average. So we're not going to use the whole flex box, but I'm hoping the fact that it's the same kind of unit, the 1/6 and 1/6, will make the numbers line up. Let's try it. If it doesn't, we'll keep playing with it. Oh. Created a different problem for myself now, apparently. So now the average box is down there. The flex box is not taking up the full width. All right, PDFs, you win. Let's put in 2/6 and take out the content of that box. So it just fills out the whole space. Hopefully that'll do it. Am I just making it worse? Oh, goodness. Okay. I must have done something along the way. Let's get back to a better state here. And play with... Don't make too many changes. Be willing to back out of something. Because then you find yourself getting stuck in a hole. Like, oh, this is not where I thought I was, and I'm in a bad spot. Maybe what I'll do instead is just kind of bump the number over a little bit. So it probably won't be perfectly aligned, but it'll be close enough. And what can I do that with? I can do that with maybe some margin. I don't know if I want to use margin or padding. We got the same height match up there. That's good. Like they're on the same. We want some padding on the left side, I think. Let's just tweak it. I'll start with 4. That's going to be too big. 2. See how that goes. Ah. So close. Yeah, space is tricky. Okay. That might not be pixel perfect, but it is close enough. PL3, you are the winner. All right. So what's left? I think we can finish off this entire report. I don't think we need to start this next time. We still have a little bit of time here, and can integrate the progress report into the overall report, which is the actual thing that the customer will click on. And as a reminder, if you don't recall what that's like, on the reports page, I have this bundle section where the user clicks this and they click create the bundle. And that's what generates the zip file and stuff. So we can now go, well, let's commit what we have so far. First, make sure that the coverage works, make sure all the tests pass, and then we'll move on to integrating with the actual view that matters. Chugging along. There we go. Green dots train. Cool, 100% coverage. Let's see what's in that diff. We've got our new data class, which is all of that stuff extracted from the view. All has coverage because I have good test coverage on the view. Being tested by proxy through the view test, but that's probably okay. Then we've added our new dashboard, Office dashboard page to check. And this is we did that refactoring on the actual PDF generation stuff. Made that really easy. So it's just calling this make report helper function. And we have our test case to make sure that no one can accidentally access the testing page that I made. That's really the reason why I added this test case. I don't care so much about the 200 response. I need it for coverage. I care that this happens, that no one can accidentally get access to admin pages. I always want to be checking my access control stuff, make sure that's good. What's left? We've got cleanup of the view. We deleted some imports. We created our new testing view. And we've cleaned up the old progress report view with that stuff to extract to a data class. And got our dashboard template addition. There's one thing that we didn't see because it didn't add it as a tracked file. It's that new PDF template, but I don't think we need to stare at that. So once this commits, we'll say generate progress report. This is for, I'm not saying fixes because I don't want to close it. This is for 531. Awesome. All right, time to finish this guy, this feature. Let's go, where are we gonna go? we need to return to the views. We're at the bundle create view. Where are you, bundle? Create bundle. Now this is where this gets pretty nice, because I think the whole thing is all we're doing is changing, we're including this. Still in each enrollment, still need a report for every enrollment. And so we want to change from the resource report context to be the progress report context. This is now the progress report context. It has the same exact class method name from enrollment. It doesn't care about the course ID because that's not part of this for the bundle. And we can change this to progress report. The rest of the file name can match, so they can be consistent. And we need to change this to progress. Now what should happen, my Pi should say like, hey, you're not passing the right thing because I'm still calling the wrong function. So type checking for the win. All right. Now, both of those things will run. And I think I have a test for that, which is, I'm sure, getting slower at this point. Create bundle. Can I search for it that way? Oh, come on. Bundle. Create bundle. There it is, right below. So we can run this. It's going to take longer now. It's generating more PDFs. This is going to be like far and away. Well, it's actually not too bad. Three seconds. Maybe once the PDF stuff gets going, it's happy. Let's check it out. See how it looks. Fruit of the labor that we're doing. So when I click this time, I'm just going to refresh just to make sure it's right. I should get a new zip file name. That'll actually be numbered, and it should have more content. Let's see how long it takes to generate. Ooh, no. Something happened. It was not good. What is this? Look at that name. Fail. XE Swudge. No. No. What'd I do? File name. School desk bundle school year. .zip. Why you're what? Okay. Well, let's at least see if the content is right. We've got resource report and progress report. So let's check out Mark's progress report. That was the one that had the thing we've been looking at, the numbers. Looks pretty good. Okay. Now, figure out what the heck happened with that name. We even like tested this, didn't we? So something happened. Clearly. I wonder if we can see it on the network tab. I'm going to click this. It's doing a GET request. There's some stuff there. It's done. It's generating a random name for it. So it's like it's ignoring the disposition field. Why? So the file name went from being this useful thing to, okay, let's compare. Let's go over there and return it to the much simpler bundle.zip and see what the disposition shows that's different. So clearly the content works. We nailed that part. That's good news. Something broke. Bundle.zip. I don't know if it could be a number of things. It could be the space that we've added between words. That's a possibility, in which case we just dash-arize the thing. More likely, it'll be the year, but I don't know. So look at that. It's not doing any of that like UTF-8 mangling business that it did before. All right. What's next? Let's build this up one piece at a time. So school desk bundle.zip. Let's leave the school year out of the picture. See if it can handle spaces. School desk bundle.zip. All right. Let us, something must be happening in the Django processing of this as once we hit a character that is not permitted. So let's change it to what I think it's supposed to be in the format string. So that would be, well, I guess in this case it would be a 21 to 22 school year, right? That's what this year was. So I have a feeling that this dash character might be what is triggering some kind of encoding, which then it is blowing up Firefox content disposition spectacularly. Or maybe I got something wrong and it's not doing what I thought. Escape the braces. That's interesting that you say that John. Like I'm wondering why. Because I'm using an F string, right? Like this is an F string. So, all right. Because clearly that worked. Like we just saw it. It had the right 2021-2022. So what happened? Like what, am I using a different character? Like what if I print, I'm going to print the file name here and print it here. What's different? I would think that those would be equal, but maybe I used a different character that I didn't anticipate. Could be. I've got an idea in my head. We'll get to that theory in a second. Let's create this again. Still has the right name because I hard-coded it. So that's not what I'm after that time. Zip not logical? I'm not quite following you there, John. All right, look at this. These names are identical. So what? I'm confused. I may be missing the obvious here. Got file name. Because I would think that this format string would resolve to in that file name variable to just a string, right? Like we saw it print out. And we saw them, as far as I can tell, is that the same character? Or is that ooh. I don't think it's the same character. I think it might be, I got fancy. I think that might be an M dash. Let's see if my theory is correct. Well, I think the file names inside of the zip seem to be okay. It seems to be just the naming that is at the content disposition with the HTTP request. Maybe I'm not fully grokking what you're telling me. You've definitely showed me in times when I've been in error before, so you could be seeing something that I'm not seeing. But here's my theory. This is not the same as that. Can you see it? It's hard to see. I think I used a special character of the M dash character. So it's a little ever so minusculely wider. So here's my theory. Here's the easy way we can test that. Is we can come into, and that probably is what this is making sense now, because if M dash is not in the ASCII set, like all the other characters we saw were in the ASCII set. Space is in there, like there's dots in there. There's nothing that's strange. If M dash is not in ASCII or Latin 1, then it has to trigger into that Unicode, that UTF weirdness that we saw. I don't know why Firefox didn't accept that. It seems like it should have, but that's my theory of what happened. I want to make sure I'm on the old version, that because I want to keep the M dash because I like it as a character visibly on the web. So I think what I should be doing instead is down here we can represent this differently. We'll continue to use the dash, and we'll say start date. We'll just be very explicit about what I'm going to put in there. %y. This is where, dang it. This is why the string was helpful, because look, it's got that conditional logic of if they have the same year, do this differently. Okay. I'm gonna keep it with a string, and then we're gonna do what's going to look even weirder. It's going to require a comment. I'm not going to remember it otherwise. So let's take file name, and we'll do file name equal file name replace. I'll put that there for now. I'm going to put the dash character. I don't even know how to copy. So we'll put we're going to say, there's the M dash. This is the dash. Super hard to tell. And put that in there and see if that does what we expect. There it is. Boom. Okay. That was it. So now we need to require a comment because there's no way. I can't even, looking at that, it's like, it doesn't seem like it's doing anything. The first character is an M dash from the stir school year stir method. Try a different character. Yeah, you're right. So I could come up here and say plus, or just say space, I guess. Although I guess I have that replaced in there. So true test is going to be to comment out this line. Well, this is a fun little discovery along the way here. Unicode is really tricky in headers, especially in the content disposition field. This feels like a bug for somebody. Either Firefox is not properly handling UTF-8 encoding, or Django has put the wrong value in the content disposition header. Either way, something did not know how to handle that character properly. So we're going to do this hack for this field. And I need to put more here. So replace with a dash to avoid header character encoding weirdness. Fun. Who would have thought that that would have been the bug? Like, I would have thought somewhere else, maybe one of the reports was messed up. Nope, nope, nope. Strange. So that's all we had to do to add this report. And that's where it's most satisfying, is like all that work and it's just like 3 lines. Maybe the f-string changed it to m dash on output. I don't know. I think that the f-string is, so this is it's just a character from Python's perspective. M dash is just a Unicode character, so it doesn't care. Everything in Python 3 is Unicode. Juan Carlos, it's hard to see, but what we concluded was that this character that's in my stir method is not just a straight up ASCII dash character, you know, the minus sign on your keyboard. It's actually an M dash character, which is a special character which is slightly wider than a regular dash. And because it's a Unicode character point and not in the ASCII set, there were some weird encoding issues with the content disposition header. That's the strangeness. Can't explain it, or can't explain why it didn't work. which part of the system got it wrong. But feel pretty good. Feel pretty good about this overall. Let's do one final run with the test. Make sure everything's still right. Don't think anything. Yeah, those are encoding bugs are tricky for sure. And assuming it's all as well, that is where we will wrap up this evening. And I'm thinking, the nice part about this is like, oh no, oh shoot, what happened? I was about to say this is getting easier, but then we got a failure. What failed? Oh, cool. It's the simpler, I'd hacked it in there because we had that weird encoding stuff, but now it's the simpler thing that you would expect. So we can replace this with a space, space, space. This should now pass. That's the test failed that failed. Yay. Okay. Just because I'm weird sometimes. All right. What's left? I think really the next thing to do on this project is kind of just keep cranking. The same sort of pattern of go into a view, one of these report views, extract out the context into a data class, and make the PDF and the template, and then do some fit and finish stuff on it. That seems to be what remains. This is, so I think the next time that I stream, I'll be doing that for the attendance report, and hopefully can knock it out pretty quickly. There is a final report that is new and unique, and that is this one. So currently, actually, let me bring up the app again. There is an area where the user can see this stuff. Yep, SaaS is, yep, styling bugs are tricky too. Where, what can I say with this? This is going to be the hardest one. I have code that displays completed tasks for the user, but now that in the way that it's displayed on the site, there's some stuff that goes in there that is like, it's all the users at once. So you might have seen some of the test data, the name of the class that we've been using, or one of the classes, is Math Both. And I called it that because it is for both of the students that are in the school year. I just gave it a name that indicates that it's a shared thing. So if you were to look at that, and we can, we look at it in the school year view and come down here and look at Math Both, you'll see that both of my kids are listed here. For records keeping purpose, we don't want this. We only want a single student listed. And there's a bunch of buttons, and like, this is not designed with reporting in mind, but this is the kind of information that needs to be on the report. So we'll have to use a lot of the data that's here, actually a little bit more complex. We even need it with this like grayed out view that has all of the completed tasks. So we have to go through all of the courses, get all of this kind of data, show all of the completion dates. So it's going to be a lot of similar data from here, but it will be a variant. And I'm not sure if I want to tie the report to the data that's here, or if I want to have a different view of that course data. I'm not really sure if what's going to be an easier way to manage that. And so that's part of that most complex report. But I'm going to work up to that. I want to make sure that we go through this process a third time with the attendance report. Make sure that the primitives that we've established are working well. I think they are. I think like I'm pretty happy with the patterns that I've seen pop out of this. And then using those refined primitives, we'll be able to tackle that last report with more skill, I'll say, or at least more tooling to help. So anyway, that's where I'll leave us for the evening. Thank you all for joining in. Thank you for your help and your contributions and your questions. I liked chatting with you all. I will be back next week. If you want to catch something, is that there's a part of the recording that you missed, you got disconnected, you want to check it out, I do take all this content and post it up on YouTube after the stream is over. Do a little bit of like polishing to take off the header at the beginning when I'm not quite started up yet. So it takes a little bit of time to clean up that part. But this content will be uploaded shortly thereafter. So thank you all for joining in, and I'll see you next week. Take care.